Good morning. It's time to get in touch. In Touch is a public affairs show dedicated to improving the lives of Susquehanna Valley residents. I'm Freddi Hammer, news director at Backyard Broadcasting. Well, the pandemic shut down so many things. Work, leisure, they were all forced indoors, and we coped. But as things start to reopen, we go back to work and start to interact again with friends and neighbors and some other folks who were forced to reinvent their plan were the Jehovah's Witnesses, whose signature method of spreading their joyful news meant knocking on doors. Robert Hendricks, national spokesperson for the Jehovah's Witnesses, is with us today on In Touch. Good morning, Robert Hendricks.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Now, am I right to say your door-to-door ministry was shut down for 2.5 years due to COVID?
March 2020, we suspended our door-to-door, our in-person meetings, our in-person ministry, and also later on, just a few weeks later, our in-person convention. So the answer is yes, and we started back up with our in-person door-to-door ministry September 1, 2022.
Wonderful. Now, people probably are a little wary, like, who's walking around our neighborhood? We're not seeing you as much. We hadn't seen you as much through the years.
It's true. We were definitely a signature trademark on corners, coming out of minivans with 4 or 6 people and fanning out into the neighborhoods. And it was something that we have done for more than 100 years. And for it to be stopped was difficult for us. It was an interesting and difficult transition, but it was a pretty quick paradigm shift for our people because we went almost immediately, within really weeks, going to virtual meetings, video conferencing with meetings, going to a virtual ministry, virtual Bible studies, video conferencing with Bible studies, writing millions and millions of letters, and also making millions and millions of phone calls. So we were very, very busy throughout the 30 months, and we settled into that routine and really covered our neighborhoods very well.
Did you feel like you had a youth contingency that could help you with the technology, or did you feel you had a pretty good grip on that as your sort of first moment?
I think that there was a learning curve for many people. As you know, some of our seniors are the most savvy. They're the ones using Facebook, and they have their iPads, and they rely on them. And Jehovah's Witnesses, for a number of years now, have moved into the technological space. So our meetings are very technology-oriented, very interactive, multimedia. We require really a device to really get the full impact of our meetings and our study, because embedded in our publications now are videos and audio publications and artwork that is just really easily delivered on a device. And so many were very much accustomed to it, but it is true that we have small congregations, and then they're divided into pastoral groups. So there's definitely some assistance that was needed throughout the pandemic, but especially at the beginning for some who aren't as technologically savvy, whether that was a younger person or an elderly one.
So you have your door-to-door ministry. Does that go hand in hand with the technology, as far as you definitely have the Bible online and people can read those materials and then continue studying with the missionaries that come to their doors?
Our technology is inextricably linked now with our ministry.
Okay.
In fact, we just released a new interactive Bible study program called Enjoy Life Forever that relies on technology, really. Whether you have it in book form or not, it really relies on an interactive method of teaching. And so if it's on your iPad or on your iPhone or on the computer, you'll notice that there's very little text, there's lots of illustrations, there's lots of real-life experiences, there's biblical and modern-day dramatizations within that are embedded into it. And so, yes, there's no doubt we have been using our technology from door to door for many years now, and many of the calls that we make that will allow us to talk or are very interested will either lead or end with a video from our publications. Our JW library is being used about 15 million users every month, and it's got 600,000 audio and video publications that are downloadable within the app for free. And so we carry it around with us. There are, I think, 6 Bible translations and in some 200 languages available just for a quick download right on those devices. And so we use that extensively.
I received a phone call from Jehovah's Witnesses. First question they had for me was, do you feel the things in the world are taking away from our joy? Do you feel like you can have a joyful life with what's going on? How do you feel about everything? And as far as the message comes from Jehovah's Witnesses out to the world when they're out knocking on doors, is that the same kind of questions that you're asking, or do you focus more on the doctrine of what you're trying to teach?
Oh, definitely. We try to really stay away from doctrine, because the doctrine believe it or not, for many of us, no matter what religion we are, especially from a Christian standpoint, we have so much in common, but we tend to focus doctrinally on the things where we don't agree. So as Jehovah's Witnesses, we focus on the things where we do agree. And so we kind of stay away from doctrine in the beginning because we have a common experience. We have a common understanding of certain aspects of the Bible. All of us, so many Christians for millennia, have been praying the Lord's Prayer. And that Lord's Prayer is in itself, in miniature, an understanding of our theology. God's name, kingdom coming, bring satisfaction and paradise to the earth, keeping our relationships with each other in a good way where we're forgiving each other, relying on God for our daily bread. That really, in miniature, is our theology. And so when we focus on that, people get that. And when we focus on things like how is this pandemic affecting you? Do you need comfort? How do you find comfort in the Bible? Why is the Bible relevant for us today? Those are questions that many inquiring minds and hearts they get, and it resonates with them, and so it begins a conversation that can be productive.
It's so personal, those kind of reactions and feelings about everything that's going on. And I just sort of in my mind always think of, when I think of different doctrine, different religions, all working together to do the same thing, I think of that Bible verse about the mountain created without hands, which is things happening in God's way, but we're doing the work. And I sort of feel like we're all kind of a part of that. Daniel
chapter 2 is a very powerful part of the Bible because it talks about the kingdom. It relates directly with the Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus talked about the Sermon on the Mount, where he taught us to pray, and he told us to pray for that kingdom. And it's in Daniel 2:44, the very place where you talked about this mountain, this stone not being cut out by human hands. That stone would replace, it would actually pulverize the situation that we're dealing with today and unify us under God's kingdom. That's what that is all about. And so that's our primary message, and it's really a powerful message. And again, just the fact that you've kind of took that out of the air and brought that to the conversation, that's the type of thing that we try to do with our conversations, find common ground and build from there.
I love that. I just think that we do all have so many things in common. And when we talk about it and actually aren't afraid of the talking, that's when we find out how much we do have in common. And isn't that what you are trying to do, start those conversations?
Exactly. I think that's the key, starting a conversation. We always say that the hardest door is our first door, and that's ours, getting out of our door in the morning.
Yes.
And getting out to preaching. But also the most difficult thing with a typical neighbor is helping them understand that we are neighbors and we have lots in common, and this begins with a conversation. And that conversation can lead to something very productive from a scriptural standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, but it begins with a conversation, and that's why it's all about, honestly, our love for our neighbor is why we go to them.
Information that you sent to me started with knock, knock, who's there? You're able to start September 1st with going door to door again. I'm wondering what kind of people we'll see at our doors. Are there going to be young people? Will there be older couples? What style of people are you sending out to spread the message of joy of Jesus Christ?
Jehovah's Witnesses range in age from infants. Obviously, we don't do infant baptism, but they're part of Jehovah's Witness families, and later on they'll make a dedication. I made a dedication at 15, but I started knocking on doors when I was 5 or 6 years old, 4 even. As soon as I could walk, I was walking with my parents, and so you'll find that there'll be young ones, there'll be teenagers, there'll be older ones, and it will reflect really the community. If it's an older community, a rural community, typically our folks are going to be older. And they'll be knocking on the doors because all Jehovah's Witnesses are ordained ministers. When you get baptized, you take on a ministry. It's part of our obligation as Christians. Jesus told his apostles before he left the earth, in fact, the last thing he told them is that you will be witnesses of me in Jerusalem, all Judea, Samaria, and to the most distant parts of the earth. And then he was taken up into his heavenly assignment. He told them, go preach, go make disciples. And so we take that very seriously, just as the first century Christian congregation did. And so every single person in our congregations is a preacher. We're a minister. And that's our focus when it comes to our faith.
I'm wondering about the structure of the regions in our area. You're calling from the New York area, but here we are in Lycoming County. Do the regions that you're working with slide down into our area, or is it broken up in a different way?
We have 13,000 congregations in the United States branch, and so those congregations, they are broken up by geography.
Okay.
So they're hyper-local. So our congregations are small in size. Generally, in the rural areas, they're much larger geographically. In places like Miami, they literally could be one square block or one building because there's many Jehovah's Witnesses in that building, and so we have to actually keep our congregations small so that we can shepherd the congregations and we can organize. And so every congregation has its congregational assignment, and that assignment is neighborhoods, 10,000 homes, let's just say.
Okay.
And their assignment, once a year at least, is to reach all of those homes in some way, whether that's through door-to-door ministry, whether that's through cart witnessing in our villages, or whether that is through other means. For example, we have done virtual Bible studies, and of course the phone calls, just like you got, and letters as well.
I'm also wondering that, small is great and personal is wonderful, but globally, are you invited as a Jehovah's Witness, is your organization invited to the global table to talk about different aspects of religion in our world?
We are at times invited to the table. We don't typically participate in global initiatives related to many different religions because our focus really is on what Jesus told us to do. He was very clear with Pontius Pilate when he said that my kingdom is no part of this world. And so we are working in the service of his kingdom. And we, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we really do believe, and it's a deep-seated belief, that the only fix, the only thing that will cure the problems that we're facing permanently is God's kingdom. And so anytime that we do other initiatives, we take away from our focus on the kingdom. And so we focus on the kingdom. And of course, the kingdom has realities today. Those realities are in a brotherhood, a unified brotherhood globally. Those realities are in a global education program that we are involved in. Those realities are in caring for our neighbors, our community. During the pandemic, we set up 16 disaster relief committees in the United States alone, 800 worldwide, so that we could care for our communities. We were the largest distributor of food boxes in the United States through the Farm to Family program. And the reason why we did that is because we know that it does go beyond giving a message of comfort. And sometimes, many times, like right now in Puerto Rico, in Bermuda and other places, we need to respond in a physical way. And so we focus on providing that to our congregants and to our communities in a very realistic way, in ways that they'll see the tangible effects of the kingdom in heaven right now.
You can find out more at jw.org. Speaking with Robert Hendricks, he's the national spokesperson for Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm wondering also about what a service is like. Can we come to a service? Is anyone invited to join you on Sunday mornings?
Yeah, that's an interesting part of Jehovah's Witnesses. We're really the most public-facing religious organization on the planet. We have 6,000 conventions that we hold annually all over the world in arenas, in theaters. They're public. There's never a collection. We have 2 meetings every week in communities around the world in 120,000 congregations, 13,000 here in the United States that are public, never a collection taken, no ID needed at the door, just walk in. We have a website that's 1,068 languages that dwarfs anything in the United Nations, Facebook, Google, all put together can't match that. We have, just in the last 2 years, put out nearly 100 new translations of the Bible in new languages. And so, yes, we are all about the public. And our meetings are very, very interesting because it's not somebody standing on a pulpit and addressing the flock. It is an interactive program. So if you come to our meeting during the midweek, you'll notice that there are participants, young and older, in the program that give their own talks. That we have mostly question and answer discussion both on our midweek meeting and our meeting on the weekends. And so people are welcome to answer and talk on the microphone and socialize with us. And we're really an organization that welcomes. In fact, we embrace new ones. Every time they walk in the Kingdom Hall, they kind of get crushed by love.
That's so lovely. You started as a Jehovah's Witness with your family. You were born into the Jehovah's Witness religion and baptized later as a 15-year-old, or as far as taking a commitment. Is that how your church works?
Yes, indeed. So every young person who grows up in a Jehovah's Witness family, they have a choice. And the choice is, are you going to take the religion of your family? Or because it's a personal commitment. You know, we're not born Jehovah's Witnesses. Nobody is born a Jehovah's Witness. And we have to learn what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness, and typically that is done on a family level, but many times it's done simply by our ministry. We have Bible studies. But on a family level, you grow up, and obviously you're obedient, respectful to your parents. But at some point, you need to make a personal dedication. That dedication may happen for some young ones anywhere from, it usually is somewhere from the 12 to the 18 area. For me, it was 15.
Okay.
Sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later. Many times it's those who grow up as a Jehovah's Witness and come back when they're 35 years old and say, you know what, this is the truth that I know and I believe. One of those requirements is basically committing to a life of ministry. And so, and our ministry, while it is an act of love supremely, it also is an act of courage every time we go out there. So all of that said, I made my dedication, and I became an ordained minister at 15 years old. Was baptized in New York at, believe it or not, at Belmont Park, where they do the Belmont Stakes.
Oh, yeah.
In a pool, and my brother was baptized at the same time. And I've been practicing Jehovah's Witness ever since then.
That was my next question. Where do you do, is there a baptismal font in your meeting halls, but you do that wherever is convenient?
There was a time many years ago when we had certain kingdom halls, that's what we call our houses of worship, that had baptismal pools. But as we've grown as an organization, we have focused primarily on baptisms at our conventions and assemblies. So we have two smaller assemblies a year. They're called circuit assemblies, where a region of about 20 congregations get together and they'll go to an assembly twice annually. Then we have our big conventions in the summer all over the world. And it's typically at those conventions and those assemblies where pools are actually set up or they are at the facility. And it's a public baptism. So it is a beautiful thing because it's not something that, while we can do it privately, you can do it in a bathtub or in a river, just as we've done during COVID-19.
Right.
We've been very private, but typically it's done before many onlookers, and it's a very happy occasion.
Well, that just sounds wonderful. It's lovely learning a little bit more about the Jehovah's Witnesses. Sometimes people have questions like, are you a Mormon? Are you a Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist? What's your opinion of the reason people mix everybody up in those three areas?
I think it's common in life to when you don't have an intimate understanding of somebody else's path in life, to lump people together. Mm-hmm. So if you talk about 7 days LDS and Jehovah's Witnesses, and you put them together because there might be one thing that you know, and the one thing that you know is they're not Catholic or Baptist or typical what you might call mainstream Christian religions. And so all of a sudden you don't know the difference. Well, there are differences, clearly, and you've heard them today. And so we're very thankful that when we get a chance like this, or when we get a chance to have a conversation at a door, we can make those distinctions, because people think. I can remember standing up at a planning board meeting where we were building a Kingdom Hall, and it was very controversial in the community, and somebody screamed at me, and there was 300 people in the audience, and they screamed at me and said, "You don't believe in Jesus?" I said, "Yes, we do believe in Jesus." and then they said, "You don't believe in his resurrection?" I said, "Well, we're going to be celebrating the memorial of his death next week," I said, and you're welcome to come, and yes, we do believe in his resurrection, or else he wouldn't be our king right now in heaven. So it's those types of things. We get a chance now to say, yes, we do believe in Jesus. Yes, we do love doctors, and we embrace modern day technology and medicine, and it's a personal decision to take a vaccine. There are so many things that are easy to lump you together with others. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, we don't mind that. That's why we're going from door to door to debunk the myths, to get to know our neighbors, and to allow them to get to know us. And it's really a privilege to do that.
Well, it's been a privilege for me. Robert Hendricks is the national spokesperson for Jehovah's Witnesses. It is a privilege for me to hear what the Jehovah's Witnesses are doing around our neighborhoods now that they're coming back and knocking on doors. So we're looking forward to maybe meeting some of those members and hopefully learning a little bit more about how we feel about our eternity, really, isn't it? We're concerned about that for the most. And if we aren't right now, maybe it's in there somewhere with a little mustard seed ready to grow.
Well, in that kind, yes. And it's been a privilege talking to you. Thank you, Freddi.
Thanks for being on In Touch today.
You got it.
In Touch is locally produced in our studios at 1685 4 Mile Drive in Williamsport. To get in touch with us regarding questions, comments, or topic ideas, call weekdays between 8 and 5, 570-323-8200. You can also write to us at 1685 4 Mile Drive, Williamsport, PA 17701. Attention Freddi Hammer. Or email me at fhammer@backyardbroadcasting.com. For archived programs of our In Touch series, you can download and subscribe to our new Backyard Podcasting feature through a link on any Backyard Broadcasting website or obtained where podcasts are available. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Backyard Broadcasting. The programming discussed here on In Touch does not necessarily reflect the feelings or opinions of the management or staff. Thanks for listening to In Touch, a production of Backyard Broadcasting.